And we're live. Welcome back. For those of you that have been trying to watch this on Facebook, I had a problem. I was trying to stream this via my PC to Facebook, and it was terrible image quality. I don't know what was going on. So I switched back to the default YouTube stream, which hopefully does not give me the same problems. We're going to double check though. It almost looked as if there was something wrong with the bandwidth, but that's strange because I'm on fiber, so I don't know what could be wrong. Let me click on this. No, it's perfect quality. So this must be a driver issue or something with the browser or Facebook not recognizing my webcam or something else. Who knows? It could be a million things. I'll figure that out some other time. I do have a chat room for this as well. Where do I click for that chat room? I forgot it myself. Let's see. Why don't I follow the link that I just posted? That's probably the best. And then there should be, oh yeah, what's with my eye? Stay tuned. I will tell you in a second. Pop out chat. So I'll just use a chat. I don't have to see myself on this thing. I can turn that off. Yep, the chat is there. Okay. Let's see. Okay, well this should work. Is everyone from Facebook back on YouTube now? Are you guys all in the chat room? If so, let me know. Just say hi. You'll hear about the eyes soon enough. Hold on, let me just post one more post to Facebook. The Facebook live stream had some issues, so I'm now streaming via YouTube. There we go. And also post this to the Twitter folks. Is there still anyone on Twitter these days? I don't even know. I don't even know. Okay, hey Niels. And now the funny thing is you get people reacting to the video because they think it's live, the Facebook Live video, but it's not anymore. I get that all the time. Like sometimes people will start talking to me to a live recording that I recorded like the day before. Oh well. That's a good thing. It's only 10 minutes, so they will hear that they have to move to Twitter. To TweetDeck. Right. Let me post this real quick. Yep, that should be it. Tweet. Okay, we tweeted. All right. This is a lot better. Totally. All right, let's get going with the show. For those of you that are only watching the YouTube stream, as I've explained in previous broadcasts, you won't be able to hear the final audio or the sound mix or the jingles that I have on my iPad because you're listening to the audio on the webcam. So apologies for that. If you want to hear what the show sounds like once it's finished and properly mixed, then I would refer you to the website Trideo.com, which is TRIDEO.com. So very soon you will hear the whole story behind the black eye. But first, let me get my show notes and close the gazillion windows I have open. Always too many windows. The bigger the monitor, the more windows I have. Let me make that smaller. There you go. Now I've got a nice view of everything, more or less. And I can even do some browsing. Perfect. Here we go. You are listening to The Break. I'm Father Roderick, and this is episode number 1020. From the Simpsons to the Sacraments, from technology to theology, this show features the cool and the classical, the past and the future, the trends and the tradition. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I think it's time for a break. Hey, folks, and welcome to another episode of The Break. This is the zombie edition. And since you're listening to this via audio, you don't know why I'm calling this the zombie edition, but I also have a small video audience, people that are watching this on YouTube live, and they have been inquiring about my eye. You know, my left eye is completely black and it looks as if I've been fighting. Some people even suggested that I was like Luke Skywalker and that I tried to fire up my lightsaber while looking at the exit point of the laser beam. That's that it looks terrible. And no, I've not been fighting. This is not an accident. I didn't fall from my bike. I didn't walk into a lantern post. This is actually the result of a small surgical uh, um, adventure that I had earlier this week. This was on Wednesday, and that was after weeks and weeks and weeks of walking around with an eye infection. Actually, it's not the eye that was infected, but it was one of the glands. You know, you've got these smaller, these. I think they're called officially like the sebaceous gland, but I'm not a doctor. But anyway, it's the little glands that are like below your eye in that kind of soft tissue. And the thing is, sometimes you have when you wake up, you will have stuff in your eyes, and you need to wash that. And sometimes one of those glands can get infected, and and stuff gets stuck in there, and then it starts to cause a minor infection. And I remember that I think it was around Christmas or in the week between Christmas and New Year's or something like that. I had this sharp pain in my eye, and it was swelling up, and it was causing this big. It was clearly the whole thing was red, and I was like, oh gosh, I got an eye infection. Um, but then after a couple of days, the pain started to go away and the swelling became less. And so I figured, it's probably just one of these things, like a pimple or something. It will go away. The body will probably know how to heal itself. It's kind of like my basic attitude is, trust Mother Nature. This usually, as long as you don't have any pain or any fever or whatever, you're probably going to be fine. The thing is, it didn't go away. Instead, the kind of the swelling started to harden a bit, and that's the moment that I started Googling, and I read that if that happens, you have to use like warm. I'm not sure about the English word, but it's just one of those pads that you put in a microwave and you heat it up and you put it against your eye. What it does is it opens those glands, and then whatever infection is in there can get out. The thing is, I was way too late with that, and so it had cauterized. I think that's a word. But anyway, so it was already too far gone. So that's when I went to see my doctor, my physician, and he said, "Well, did you try the warm stuff?" I said, "Yeah, didn't work." And he said, "Okay, then you'll have to go to see an eye doctor at the hospital. I can make an appointment for you if you want." And I was like, "Yes, please." Because, well, in 2 weeks from now, I'll be walking for 6 weeks in Spain to Santiago, and I don't want to walk around with an infection. That doesn't seem like a good idea if you're so far away from everyone and everything. So nowadays, it's all computer. So they don't call up the hospital to make an appointment. No, they put your name in a computer system, and then he said it's all automatic by now. You will get an email, and that will tell you exactly the day and the time that you have to be at the hospital. And so I get this email like a few days later saying that it's going to be in this week, this past week. The time that we entered the name in the system, that was weeks and weeks and weeks ago. So it's just kind of it's almost Easter. So fortunately, I was still able to get some treatment before Easter. But if anything is wrong now, then it can't be fixed anymore. But anyway, so I went to the hospital on Wednesday, and early in the morning, I was one of the first patients. So I'm sitting there, and then there's an assistant who first does a complete eye exam. I was like, well, I'm coming for an infection. It's not to test my eyes or anything, but no, it's procedure. So the first thing they do is they administer these eye drops that will widen your pupils so that they can, see what's in there. And so they first give you those eye drops, and then you have to go back to the waiting room because it takes a while for that to start working, and then you have to go back to the assistant, and she does an eye exam. So I'm sitting there, and then you've got other patients walking around, and I get all the time is like, huh, you look familiar. Don't I know you from something? And like, oh, TV. Oh, it could be TV. So anyway, I was trying to look busy in order to not have all these awkward conversations. And so I figured I'll make a selfie with since I have these eye drops in, I'll make a selfie before the operation, before whatever they're going to do. In case I lose my eye, I will still have one final memory of what my face looked like before everything went wrong. And so they had these nice colored walls. This was green wallpaper. It almost looked at the perfect Instagram photo background. So I take this selfie, thinking, okay, I could post that, but I can also let's test Photoshop. And there's the mobile Photoshop app that I have, and you load in the picture. It's pretty advanced. You should try it out. I think it's free, even if you don't have a Photoshop like a Adobe Cloud subscription. I think you can still use it. The cool thing is it recognizes faces, and so it scans the face, and then you can alter it. You can modify. Now, of course, this is probably designed for people that want to beautify themselves on Instagram, and so they will make their face smaller or wider or whatever. I was like, okay, let's have some fun. Because these eye drops are supposedly making my pupils bigger, let's try to make my eyes bigger. So I'm starting to modify the eyes, and you can just click on the eyes. I was like, okay, bigger, bigger, bigger. And then they were a little bit bigger. I was like, let's go the extra mile. So I reloaded the already modified picture again into the same app, and I made like these big anime eyes, like in these Japanese cartoons and comics. Everyone walks around with these giant eyes. And actually, this is kind of a side thing, but that was influenced by Disney. Now, when in Japan they started to watch Disney movies, there was kind of this new visual language of, well, all these characters, like, look at Donald Duck. He's got huge eyes. Mickey Mouse, huge eyes. And so the cartoon industry in Japan, I'm not sure if it was an industry at the time, but they started to mimic that in their own style, in their own. And so that's actually the fact that in these Japanese comics and movies, you see these huge eyes. It's actually Disney who caused that. But anyway, that's beside the point. So I have this huge picture of my face, and then these big manga eyes, and I post that on Instagram and on Facebook. And I start to get these shocked reactions of people like, "What happened, Father Roderick? What did they do to your eyes?" My mom, she was like upset. She was like, "What's going on? Where are you?" And so I post, well, they gave me these eye drops to widen my pupils, and so I post that, and then some people thought that was actually causing my eyes to become huge. And so I was like, wow, it's unbelievable that these eye drops cause your eyes to become that big. And well, anyway, so I was having a great time fooling the world with Photoshop. And then I go in, well, they do the eye exam, and everything is fine, and it's kind of nice to have like an extra confirmation that at least I'm not turning blind anytime soon. And then with that, you have to go back to the waiting room, and then I get called to see the specialist. And so he asked me some questions. When did it start, and etc. And then he's going to examine, and he's like, oh, okay, I see what it is. It's it's just a clogged not an artery, but it's not a tear duct, but it's a gland. And then he's like, so when do you want this to be treated? And I'm like, well, actually, since I'm here, why don't we fix this? And he's like, oh, actually, the computer, well, no, this is not the time that I do procedures, but yeah, it's kind of a quiet day, so I think I can just squeeze you in. And it's like, yes, please, because you know what, I won't be here 2 weeks from now, so if you can do it now, yes, that would be great. There was one thing that I knew the next day. I had to go film for a documentary, or well, just one of my TV shows that will be aired later this year. So that's going to be in, I think, October probably. And I'd made an appointment with the person who is making this particular episode that we would go film, believe it or not, at a library for blind people. And so I'd had to be there for a couple of hours in the afternoon, and they would show me their Braille department, and then I would do some voice testing because they've actually they record audiobooks for blind people, and so part of the documentary would be me trying to do that test and see how if I was suitable to do that kind of work. So I tell the doctor, I got to be on camera tomorrow. Is that going to be a problem? And he's like, yeah, well, it's a small procedure. It won't look any worse than it looks now. And, you know, it was kind of still this reddish kind of swollen thing on my left eyelid. So I'm thinking, okay, if it's nothing, if it's not worse than this, well, we'll just do it. And so the procedure itself is they do, I mean, it's like it involves cutting. So but I'm just lying there. It's almost like when you're at the dentist, they have these very comfy chairs that you know you sit in it, and then it's so you're in this horizontal position. And like I look like that alien, that massive alien, the first Alien movie. That's looking through that telescope or whatever it is. That's kind of the position that I was. Very comfortable. It was early in the morning. I'd only had one cup of coffee. So I'm sitting there and I was like, okay, I think I can do this. This is very comfortable. Just lower the lights a little bit, I'll be gone. And so it's like, oh, I'm first going to numb your eye with eye drops. Then I'm going to give you some injections. And I was like, you mean like with needles? I immediately regretted being there because I don't like needles. And especially because it's going to be needles right underneath my eye. And then he's like, okay, and then I'm gonna flip the eyelid. I was like, wait, eyelids can be flipped? And then it's kind of in a difficult corner, but I'm probably gonna give you two injections, one from the left, one from the right. And then I'll flip the eyelid, and then I'm gonna cut open the gland. I'm gonna try to get the infection out, and then we'll close the eyelid, and then we'll put a patch on your eye. It's like, so how long is that patch going to be there? I already imagined myself walking around for a month like a pirate. It's like, nah, it's just for a short time. It's just to make sure that the ointment that we put in there to disinfect, etc. And he said you have to keep the iPad until your eye stops bleeding. I was like, I had this immediate vision of The Walking Dead, sitting there in a pool of blood, and like the eye just streaming and streaming, gushing with blood. And I watch way too much TV. But anyway, I was like, okay, well, I can't go back now. And but he's very kind. He's like, you'll see, it's easy. It's not going to be long. So they numb your eye, and then the injection, how'd you call it, the whatever they put in your eye. I felt that. I thought it was going to be completely numb from the eye drops, but no. This was like, ooh, it's like sticking a needle in your eyelid. You feel that. And then it was one. And then the other one, he put in like from the side of the eye, but then it's not like a little prick in one location. No, he puts it from the side, and then he pushes the needle into the eyelid until it reaches the point of the infection. I was like, oh, great. I'm sitting here. It's like 8:30 in the morning, and a guy is poking a needle in my eye. I could have filmed it, and then probably we could have marketed it as like a new horror movie. That's how it felt. And then, yeah, that started to work quite well. In the meantime, he's just chatting with his assistant and everything. And you're lying there like, oh, what am I doing here? And then he's like, okay, you shouldn't feel anything right now. So I'm now going to flip the eyelid. And then you feel that his hands, that he's doing something to your eye, but I have no idea. It must have looked like a scene from a horror movie, because like your eye is completely exposed. Your eye. Fortunately, he didn't have to. While I was waiting for the procedure, there's some other guy who walks in, a patient. He's like, "What are you here for? You're gonna get the operation?" Oh yeah, he said they'll pop the eye right out. And I did not know that he was joking. So I really thought that he was going to take a spoon and just do the get the eyeball out. Anyway, so he's then taking this whatever it was. It looked like almost like a laser pointer or something like that. So I guess it was like a knife with a light in there. And so he was like messing around in my eyelid with this knife. And I'm under this bright light, so I have no idea what was going on. But my eye is still working, so I still see that they're poking stuff. So your reflex is to close your eye. But I was like, if there's a knife in my eye, I probably don't want to close my eye. Anyway, so that's done, and so he starts prodding and pushing, and then whatever. The procedure is finished, and then he says, "Now I'm going to put the ointment in." So he takes whatever it is, like I think it was a tube or something, and then puts like this gelatinous mass in my eye, and then I get like a first, I think it was cotton or whatever, and then it's just like this huge eye patch. And then he sends me back to the waiting room. He's like, "Okay, you just sit there, and half an hour from now, the assistant will come and check on you, see if the bleeding has stopped." And he's like, "So how did you get here?" Like, "Well, I took my car." "Oh, that might be a problem actually, because you already have the eye drops that have widened your pupils, so you probably have a blurry eyesight, and then you won't be able to see from this from your left eye for a while." Oh, great. And he's like, "Okay, just sit there, and once the assistant takes the eye patch off, just wait a little bit, get a cup of coffee, and then you'll probably be fine. And just don't go drive to France." So I'm sitting there in the waiting room. Okay, let's make another selfie, because now I look like a pirate not with a black eye patch, unfortunately, although I could have used Photoshop to do that. I'm sitting there with this white eye patch. I make another selfie, post that on, and then half an hour later, the assistant comes and she opens the thing, and she's like, I don't think it's bleeding anymore. Okay, we'll just remove it and bye bye. So I walk to the corridor, back to it's a big hospital, so you have to go to all these things. And then I'm like, I want to take the escalator down to the basement where my car is, and I start to feel something moist on my cheek, and I think this is probably tears. And so I wipe it away, and my hand is all covered in blood. It's like, oh no, it's still bleeding. I'm gonna die in my car. They'll find me 5 days later in a puddle of blood, and it's gonna be the end. But so, but then I can't go back and knock on the door. Like, stop, still bleeding. So I figured it's probably gonna heal. And so I drive home very carefully. It's kind of weird if you don't use both. If you only have eyesight in one eye, the rest I could see some vague shapes, but it was all blurry. You don't see depth anymore, and it's much harder to drive a car when you don't see depth than I thought it would. I'm like, it's like playing a video game. I play a lot of racing games. I love racing games, and it's all 2D, and I could play those games. So what's the difference? But if you're so used to seeing depth and to be able to estimate the distance between you and the red light, etc., that was a strange experience. So anyway, I get back home, and it's a little bit reddish, and it's a bit tearing. There are some tears in sense. It's you can tell that they've been messing around with the eye, but it doesn't look that problematic. And then the rest of the day, I'm still a bit jet lagged because I woke up so early, but I had to edit an episode of my TV show. And I scheduled that for Wednesday. It was just one of those Rome episodes already filmed, and so it's all just editing. But the eye is like still a bit painful and I'm kind of out of whack. So I just couldn't really focus on the work. But I knew that I had only one extra day on Thursday. So yesterday, we're recording this on Friday. Uh, to no, wait, this was I'm all messed up. Was this on Wednesday? No, I think I did work because I delivered the episode on Thursday. Perhaps I went to the doctor on Tuesday to the hospital. I don't remember anymore. It's all a blur. But anyway, so I I can't really do anything that day. I go to bed, and the next morning I wake up. I look in a mirror, and I really the entire lower part of my eye is completely black and purple, and it looks as if someone punched me right in the eye. Not to mention that the place where the infection was is even more swollen than it ever was before. And the eye is also, it's like all sorts of nasty stuff is coming out of the eye. Weird. So weird. So, but the thing was, that day I had to go and film. And so I'm looking in the mirror and I was like, okay, let's take a selfie of this. Because then I'm gonna send the selfie to my the person who is doing who has the final say about the TV show, and I'll just ask him, do you think I can do this? The thing is, if I record, like I was supposed to interview people there, if people see me on camera with this black eye and you don't explain it, then nobody's gonna focus on the interview anymore. It's gonna be, why is Father Roderick does he have that black eye? But if you explain it on camera, then it detracts from the whole contents of the episode. It's not about me. It's about whatever these people do at that blind institute. So I'm thinking this is not working. This is a lot worse than what the doctor promised. So I sent the photo to Tom, and he's like, "Yeah, let's not do this. Let's do this another time." So I had to call up the guy and say, "Yeah, it's not going to work." So now it's scheduled for next week, for next Thursday, next Friday. I hope that by that time it will be gone or healed. I don't know how much time it takes a black eye like this, but anyway, the thing is, I was like, I'm going to be fine. I've got no television work before next week, the end of next week, so that's fine. But then this morning, I did get a call, and I have to go and film something tomorrow, and I'm going to be on camera. And so I was here with Inge. We are working on the studio downstairs. I will talk about that later in the show. Um, and I'm thinking, you know what? Tomorrow I need something to hide this, or at least to kind of more cover it, attenuate it a little bit, because this is going to be so weird when people see this. And so, for the first time in my life, I am in this store, this what is it, pharmacy, buying makeup. And it's like I'm standing in front of this big, I've never paid any attention to this section of the store, but it's got the lip gloss and the eyeshadow and the whatever. And I was literally like stunned to see like how much stuff there is. And it's like they had like these things, they look like pens. I thought it was to write something, but it turns out you have markers for your eyes or whatever. I don't know. And then so I don't know anything. Inga doesn't use any makeup, but at least she knows more about it than I knew, because I'm like standing there saying, what to do? Not only do you have like 50,000 different little boxes and tubes and pens and mirrors, but it's also, you've got all these different colors. So like there was this, I'm standing there. This color is called Nude 10. It's like, why do they call this Nude 10? It sounds like totally, I don't want to be here. And so, well, there's only one way to see if the color matches the color of my face is by applying it. So I'm standing in the middle of that store applying makeup, trying to cover, and it doesn't work. And turns out, so this is for the guys listening to this, for the female listeners, you probably know more about this than I do. Anyway, for the dudes, it's not like paint. It's not like you just take paint and put it on whatever you want to paint away. No, you need to first put in place a foundation. And so the foundation is like super. No, it's not super glue, but it will. It's like a layer that's kind of a bit sticky, but that's just kind of the first layer. And then on top of the foundation, which will make sure that whatever you put next is going to stick, you have to use the makeup. The I already forgot the name of it, but it was not foundation. It was other stuff. And then that was those have different colors, and so I'm trying it out in the store. Is this the color? It's like, man, that's way too white. It looks crazy. So wipe it off again. And it's a very small store. So like behind us, people are walking past us because it's right in front of the cashier. So we're really standing there blocking everyone. And then I tried the first thing was the concealer. Inge is in the chat room, so she can help out. It was concealer. The concealer is to basically hide the big black pirate patch that I have underneath my eye, and then it's compact powder. I think that's also isn't that called a foundation? So the and yeah, I'm standing there as a priest, which makes it like 10 times more awkward. And then I you have like there's like 10, 20, 30, 40. What's the color of my face? I don't know. My face has like multiple colors. My cheeks are reddish. My forehead is more white. Like my ears are more brown. So what is the color? Uh, so trying out all these. At one time, I'm applying something because they have what they call testers. So apparently, it's totally normal to test this stuff out in the store, which is also for dudes. It's kind of weird. So this I can you feel sometimes in stores in supermarkets they will give you free coffee, and it always feels like stealing. It's like because now I'm just doing applying makeup to my face using these testers, but they didn't have the testers for all the colors. So anyway, the story is way longer than I thought it would be. But we finally pick like the concealer, so that's the first layer, and then a powder, and then you think you're done. But no, no, you're not done. You need like special whatever wipes that are pre-moistified, moist wipes that you need to take it off again. And then you gotta have a sponge to apply not the concealer because the concealer is like this kind of sticky. It's like it looks like a Q-tip, but it's more solid than that. But then to evenly apply the compact powder, you need a sponge. So we have to buy those too. So I finally have all the stuff that I need. I'm still standing near the women's makeup department. And then, of course, behind me, I hear, "So, Father, what are you doing here? What are your plans?" And it's a couple of my parishioners that are standing behind. How do I explain this? Anyway, we had a lot of fun. It was just, but I don't get this. I hear that some guys actually like to wear makeup. It's like eyeliner and stuff. I was like, why? Why would you do that to yourself? All this suffering, all these expenses, all those choices, all those colors. I don't get it. It's actually now I understand why superheroes always wear masks. I in that store, I swear it. I wish I was I was Batman. I just put on the Batman, put on the hat, the ears, and then be done with it. Really. I still need to work on my Batman voice though. Yeah, eyeliner for guys. Guy liner. Really? Why? So anyway, so tomorrow is a big test. I gotta leave very, very early because I have to film all the way in the north of the country, which means I probably have to wake up like 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, spend like half an hour in front of the mirror, and it's probably all gonna be worse than before. finally, for all of you that have fast forward the past half hour about a priest talking about makeup, you don't want to hear that. It's time for our movies and TV segment. Finally. Oh man. And I'm in such a movie mode these days. And it has to do with an event that I attended in the past weekend, which was fantastic. If you follow me on Facebook, it's been pretty bad. It probably was a reason for you to unfollow me because I've been posting like 100 photos of the Dutch Comic Con, which is the biggest nerd festival that we have in this country. It is just imagine any Comic Con, and there are plenty of those in the United States, but they're much rarer in this part of the world. We had this big Dutch Comic Con, and I went for 2 days. That's how much of a nerd I am. And it was just this glorious 2-day weekend where with cosplayers and Star Trek clubs and the Star Wars 501st Legion, actors from movies, etc. And I had the time of my life. That for me, that is just, it feels like home. So I'm walking around there in my clerics when there's this girl sitting at the table. She's dressed up like some whatever pink-haired anime alien, whatever. And so she's like, "So, father, are you a real father or are you cosplaying?" And so no, I'm a real priest. And so she looks at me like, "Really, really? Well, this must be a very unfamiliar atmosphere, familiar territory for you." I was like, "Well, you know what? I was a geek long before I became a priest, so I feel right at home here." But it was a lot of fun because you get these interesting conversations because I'm the only priest. So I thought a while about putting on my Star Trek T-shirt. I have this science T-shirt that Lynn gave to me. Then I'm thinking, no, I think I'm just going to walk around as a priest because then at least I know that I have a unique costume and it's still recognizable. So, and it worked out really well. I had a lot of interesting conversations and nice people there. And the geeks that visit these festivals are all very, very positive and nice and kind. And is I think one of the biggest reasons that people want to go to these conventions. It's not truly about the cosplaying. I mean, it's cool. It's not about video games. It's not about the action. It's about the atmosphere. You are there and you speak a common language. Everybody looks different. You have people that dress up like the weirdest creatures. But because you're all geeks, there is this common experience of friendship. And I've always said, this is also basic 101 of any communications training. Friendship starts with a common language and a common experience. And that's exactly what these days provide you with. And since we don't have that, we other groups that lend people identity, like soccer clubs or if you're into football or whatever, that if you're part of the Chicago Eagles, or I don't know anything about those sports, but anyway, that gives you a sense of identity. People dress up the same, they wear the same colors, etc. So that gives you a sense of belonging, and we need that as human beings. We need it to belong to something. The thing, religion was a huge provider of identity for people. People go to church, I'm sitting there with like-minded people, and we are the ones with the true God, not those other faithful of the church next door. They're totally wrong. But so that gives you the sense that you're exactly where you need to be. And the people around you, even if you don't know them well, they all speak church Latin, or at least they sing in Latin. So it's kind of common language. But a lot of people don't have those churches anymore. People are not members of big sports clubs anymore. At least it's not as big as it used to be. But this geek world is I think, a new language that makes people feel that they belong to a certain subculture, because it is a subculture, but it's a big subculture. So it makes you feel like you're part of something. You're not just this individual lost in a sea of anonymity. No, you're all there for this common experience. And that's why people are so kind. And that's why you make a lot of friends. So anyway, for me, the biggest and the coolest moment was seeing an interview on stage with Gates McFadden. And she, for the youngsters among you, she is the most well-known from Star Trek The Next Generation. She plays Dr. Crusher. in all the seasons except for the second season, where they tried to get rid of her. And then the fans rebelled. They wanted her back. They had a substitute doctor, but she was just not the right fit. I mean, she did an okay job, but it was not Dr. Crusher. And of course, Dr. Crusher is the television mom of Wesley Crusher, played by Will Wheaton. And Will Wheaton, of course, is it's as close as you can get to ultimate geekdom. And so having Will Wheaton's TV mom right there in real life, it was something. What a lot of people don't know is that Gates McFadden has also done something completely different from science fiction TV shows. Before she was known for Star Trek, she worked with Jim Henson, and she was involved in choreography of Muppets. There's this one photo of her where she's like surrounded by all the famous Muppets, and she was just working with Jim Henson. I was like, wow. She did the choreography of two of my favorite fantasy movies that I watched when I was in high school. The Dark Crystal, which is still my all-time favorite puppet movie, The Dark Crystal. If you have never seen it, go watch it. It's kind of a bit wacky 70s vibe, much more than I remembered it to be, but it's so well done with the Skeksis, and it's got this nice mythology of these two kind of elven-like children that have to save the universe because there's this dark crystal that grants power to these evil dudes. Well, anyway, there's a lot of puppetry, very, very complicated. And Gates McFadden was in charge of choreography, so really interesting. She also did Labyrinth with David Bowie. And so a lot of the questions, and I was really grateful for that, were not just about Star Trek Next Generation, but also about her experiences working with Jim Henson and working with David Bowie. So fascinating interview. And I'm sitting there like I'm this uber nerd, and like, oh my gosh, that's someone from the Star Trek universe, and she's really there. And it's a very classy woman, very interesting interview. It's not kind of like, oh yeah, I once had this part in this science fiction movie, and I'm here just to sell my autographs. Sometimes you get that on these conventions. No, McFadden was really engaging with her audience. But the thing that shocked me was that a lot of kids in the audience, they were half my age, had no idea who she was. Like, there were lots of people that were like, who's that? Gates McFadden. Should I know her? And I was like, what? That's when you realize that actually Star Trek The Next Generation, a lot of the visitors that are there on that Comic-Con convention were not even born when that aired on TV. That's when you start to measure how old you are. So, oh my gosh. So anyway, fascinating. And then, so I was completely geeking out also because a lot of the people didn't really know who she was. There was not a big audience there. So I'm sitting there front row. And it was fantastic. I'm such a fan. So anyway, later that day, I'm walking around and talking to the Star Wars fans and the Star Trek fans, and that's kind of where doing the break for more than 1,019 episodes, because this is episode 1,020, pays off, because I know all these things, because I've talked about so much of this geek stuff. And so I'm walking around there in the afternoon, and all of a sudden I almost bump into Gates McFadden, and she was walking around with her manager on the convention floor, and she's just looking around and talking, and I'm like I literally, I was so starstruck that I didn't know what to say. It was so awkward. And so I blurred out, it's like, I loved your talk this morning. And she's like, oh, well, thank you so much. That's kind of you. Glad you enjoyed it, or something like that. And I was like, so the only thing I was like, she's already walking past me. And I blurred out, like, I'm a big fan. I was so totally in fanboy mode. So when I get back home, and there was something else that was so much fun. So I bump into this other guy, and he is like, Father Roderick, oh, I'm a fan. I listen to your podcast. Can I take a selfie with you? I was like, oh, okay. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I'm organizing this animation festival also in Utrecht today and tomorrow. And it's been going on for several days now, And this afternoon, we have this guy he's from Holland, but he works in Hollywood, and he has worked on The Hobbit. He's worked with Weta. He's worked with Lucasfilm. He worked on Star Wars. He did special effects for Star Wars. And he's going to give a talk. You may want to visit and attend that talk. I was like, what? I had no idea who that was. The person who would do the talk. I'm super curious. And so I get the address, and later that day, around 5 o'clock, I go to that talk, and it turns out it's this couple, young people. They lived very close to where I live now. Newakind is really less than 20 minutes from where I live, and it's also close to my previous parish where I was stationed. So these two young people met in high school, or secondary school, or whatever you want to call it, and they both were huge movie fans. And like, I think he himself said, I'm a movie nerd and she's a movie fan, or something like that. But he was like, and so he talked about his own, how much he was into movies and into science fiction, into Star Wars. And I hear this guy talking. He's like half my age, well, a little bit older, but anyway. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're long lost brothers. We could have been twins, really. It's the same energy, the same enthusiasm, the same geek. But so he tells his story, and he's like, okay, when we met in high school, we both knew that we wanted a career in the movie industry, but we're in the Netherlands. We're in the wrong country. So we told our parents that we would move to Hollywood and we would work on big blockbusters. They had no credentials. They had no one to introduce them there. They had no job offer or anything, but they did it. They both went to live in Hollywood in a small apartment, and he just went knocking on doors. And before he knew it, I'm not kidding you, he was working for the biggest companies in Hollywood. Um, he did work on so many movies. His first movie, the first job that he got was Iron Man 3. I mean, what? So the first movie, and he is like, his specialty is to create digital environments. So they make him create entire cities in CGI, and like backdrops and whatever. So he creates basically 3D CGI versions of whatever, artwork they create. Then, because of his work on Iron Man, he gets a call from Weta Studios. And the first movie had just aired, and he's like a super Hobbit Tolkien fan. And so he's like, oh my gosh, I love this movie. If only at one point in my life, perhaps 20 years from now, I could work with Peter Jackson at Weta Studios. Like the next day he gets a call, like, yeah, we're from Weta Studios and we're working on the next 2 Hobbit movies and we would like you to work for us. Could you come over and live in Wellington for the next 5 years of your life? And I was like, yeah. So he flies with, and his wife, by the way, works in a completely different segment of the industry. She works on costumes and prosthetics. And so she designed and made the costumes for Tron, the recent Tron movie. So I forgot the name of the actress who plays. She's from House MD, the TV show, and she plays like the heroine of the last Tron movie. That suit that she's wearing with the neon lights and everything, his wife created that, and she's been working. One movie that has just premiered is Ghost in a Mirror, and so she worked with, what's her name? She plays Black Widow in the Avengers. Anyway, she on that costume. And so she too tells part of her story. So they go to New Zealand. They live in Wellington. It turns out they were working there on the Hobbit movies while I was visiting Wellington with Matthew Camphammer. And so apparently I've been standing like right underneath the window where he was working. I, of course, had no idea that they were working there. So he gets to work on both the Hobbit movies. You remember Dale and the destruction? What's the city that Smaug destroys? I think it's not the Lake Town. Lake Town, you see in the second Hobbit movie, was entirely created by this Dutch dude. And he got to destroy it as well. So he designed the entire destruction scene and everything, and did the previous. He had this fascinating story. So I'm sitting there in this small, it was kind of a small movie theater, and there were lots of other animators, and a lot of the people that were sitting there were just kind of mildly interested. And I'm sitting there in the back of the theater, and I'm like totally geeking out. It's like, oh my gosh, oh, this is so cool, this is awesome. And then for the introduction of the talk, it's like, so we're going to talk about Star Wars, etc. And there is one super Star Wars fan here in the audience, and you may know him. I felt like the McClure from The Simpsons. You may know me from that YouTube video where I nerd out about the Star Wars trailer. And then later on, I get to meet the couple, and this guy tells me, like, "Oh my God, are you that priest? You were the first reaction that I saw on the trailer, and the first shot of the trailer, where I completely like, oh wow, that's the Crash Star Destroyer. That shot was his work. So unbelievable. I am just like, I cannot believe that this is happening, that I'm here and that I'm talking to these people, and they're basically living the dream. Like, if I had an alternate life, if there was like a J.J. Abrams version of Father Roderick's life, where there would be this time rift, and I would have been sucked into whatever vortex, and there would be a parallel Father Roderick life, and it wouldn't be Father Roderick, but instead of having, being a priest, he would be uh, just this uber science fiction nerd. If I had been in that school, I would have probably also traveled to Hollywood and done that work. Well, I don't have the qualities to do that, but he's basically living the life that if I could pick one alternate life, I would pick that one. And so he's living in Wellington for a couple of years, working on the movie of his dream. He has been working with Peter Jackson for months and months and months. And fantastic. So anyway, then he gets a call while he's still in Wellington, like, this is ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. You may have heard of us. And he's like, yeah. So we're working on this Star Wars movie, and we've seen your work in The Hobbit, and would you be interested in considering perhaps helping us with some stuff on? And he's like, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. He gets a call from ILM to work for them on Star Wars 7, The Force Awakens. And he's like, his head is exploding, because it's like as if someone would call me up. It's like, would you like to be an extra in Star Wars, the Star Wars 8 or Star Wars 9? Man, I don't think I could sleep for a month. He gets a job offer. So they fly him in. So he goes to, they have to like move from literally the one side of the planet to the other side. And before he knows it, he is working on digital environments for The Force Awakens. He's working with J.J. Abrams. Like every day they have conference calls, and JJ is giving him instructions like, I would like to have this and that, and perhaps you can make that. And there's a lot of creative freedom. And in no time, they've seen his potential, and they make him like the guy who is in charge of an entire department that has to create a certain scene. So he gets to create remember the shot in the trailer with the Falcon on Jakku, where you have that chase through the Star Destroyer with the TIE fighters and everything? I remember seeing that in the trailer and just like, oh, this guy created it all. He supervised that entire sequence. Unbelievable. So anyway, so he's been working on Star Wars. Now he's working on something that he can't even talk about. But he was like, okay, next time, Father Roderick, if you are in LA, just call me. I'd love to show you what I'm doing now. It's very cool. I can't talk about it. It's really cool. I'm going to show you when. And I was like, okay, how can I figure out an excuse to go to LA like tomorrow? Can I come up with whatever excuse to pay a visit to LA and go visit this couple. It is so amazing what these guys are doing. And the funny thing is, yeah, like that's the fun thing of geekdom. Once you meet in person and like you become friends on Facebook, for a lot of these people that work in that industry, they're not used to being the stars. They are working behind the scenes. They're somewhere in the credits and everything, but then you're just part of this mass. The people that get all the attention are the actors and the director, etc., and the big names. Uh, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're like the coolest person from the Netherlands that I've ever met. So wow, I think I need to visit LA. So if you are from that area of the United States and you have a reason, if you need any pastoral guidance, for instance, just send a letter to my bishop. Tell you need a geek priest to counsel you. Just say the word, and I will make the sacrifice to come visit you. Oh my gosh. So, um, why was I talking about all this? Because well, that's why I am in such a science fiction mood. So what I watched a lot of Star Trek. So I went back to Star Trek: The Next Generation. I rewatched some of the episodes with Gates McFadden, of course. Did you know, by the way, that they changed the uniforms from in the first season? Gene Roddenberry had said to everyone, in the future they have all this nice, smooth fabric. It's all polyester and whatnot. So they made these costumes. The thing was that material does not breathe, and it's skin tight, so you cannot gain any weight. And what's more, it gets very smelly after a while. So halfway season two, this was it Gates McFadden, or did I find it somewhere? I read a story about that. Anyway, halfway season two. In season two, they decide to change to wool, and then the wool is also problematic because, like, if you look at these suits from the first two seasons, they're one piece. So if you have to go to the bathroom, it takes like 20 minutes to take off all the stuff. And so it's only halfway season two that they switch to a costume that has actually two parts, trousers, and but that's where the Picard get that habit of pulling down his uniform. It's from that first season when they had that ill-fitting, weird plastic material that was always creeping up, and so he even does it in the last movie that he played in, because it's become so much like an iconic thing of Picard, but it was actually because they used that horrible material for the first season. So knowing kind of the background stories, it's so much fun to go back to those early episodes. Um, then of course that's on Netflix. I'm also still watching DS9, still kind of fighting my way through the second season. It's not very good. I can't wait for the Ron D. More kind of the big story arc. So that is going to take a while. I watched. I went back to The Hobbit. I was able to pick up the extended edition, all the three movies in 3D. I'm one of those lucky people that have the 3D television, with the director's commentary and everything, for like $35. It was so dirt cheap. And I'm rewatching The Hobbit extended edition with the director's commentary of Peter Jackson, and of course with the in my mind, like, I now know someone who worked on that movie, and I have to say it's given me a new appreciation for the Hobbit movies. I've The Hobbit is kind of not as good as the Lord of the Rings, and I think it's still objectively true that the Lord of the Rings is such a masterpiece. The Hobbit is not on par with that, but listening to those stories of how they created those movies gave me much more respect for what they were trying to do. And if you hear, for instance, about what was involved in putting the dwarves and Gandalf in the same look, it's unbelievable. You don't realize that when you're watching it, because it's so well done that you don't realize that actually Gandalf is not at all in the same place. He's on a green screen, another soundstage. He cannot even hear the dwarves. If you rewatch the movies with that kind of information, you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe what they pulled off there. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. And I watched some other movies, but I'll review those next time. I've been talking for almost an hour now. I can't believe it. Uh, let's do a very quick visit to the Peculiar Bunch. There it is. Here at the Peculiar, I'm speaking too fast. Here at the Peculiar Bunch, we're happy to explain Catholic faith to you. And we're wrapping up Lent. We're in the final weeks of Lent, which means it's Holy Week starts on Palm Sunday. So last weekend was Sunday Letare, which means it's a happy Sunday. It's an extra cheerful Sunday. It's like halfway through Lent. The color, the liturgical color changes from purple to rose. It's not pink, it's rose, because Jesus rose from the dead. He did not pink from the dead, at least as far as I know. So, and now it's kind of like a countdown. It's almost as if Lent is accelerating because next Sunday, not this Sunday, I'm recording this a Friday before the Sunday before Palm Sunday. It's Palm Sunday, and that starts Holy Week. And then Holy Week culminates in the Triduum Paschale. That's what it's called in Latin, which is the Holy 3 days of Easter. And it's basically, it starts on Thursday evening, so that's the eve of this. Catholics always start like the evening before. We like our feasts to be longer than just the day itself. So we start at the Vespers, the evening prayer of the evening before. So that's Holy Thursday. Then on Friday, it's the commemoration of the suffering of Christ, and we venerate the cross. And then it's the Saturday, Holy Saturday. That's the day of, well, according to the creed, the descent into hell. So Jesus did not just deliver the people that were living in his time and the generations that followed, but Jesus also saved the saints from the Old Testament, who were kind of like Christ had not risen yet. But so that's the kind of the mystery of Holy Saturdays. He goes, and this is something that you can only talk about it kind of in a very abstract way. And there are paintings and where this is depicted, where Jesus is like taking Adam and Eve by the hand, and you see the doors of hell destroyed. And of course, saints are not in hell, but it's kind of this. It's also metaphysical. You can't really talk about it time, but it's the people that were living with God before Christ kind of reconnected heaven and earth. So anyway, and then Saturday evening you have the Easter Vigil, which is basically literally waiting for the new light of Easter, which is carried in with the Easter candle in a pitch dark environment. The reason that I'm talking about this is that in my last TV episode, I interviewed a priest about explaining how what is Holy Week for beginners, for someone who doesn't really remember that well. So I had this long interview, 10 minutes long, and I used all the images from previous celebrations of Holy Week in the Vatican. So I've been working my way through hours and hours and hours of footage of the Vatican with Pope Francis, trying to select some images. So it's like almost as if for me, Holy Week is already something that I've, yeah, that was last week, right? No, oh wait, I've just been editing this. So the thing is, these celebrations in the Vatican with the Pope are cool. I've been there twice for only once, because I think the first year I went back to Holland for that, but I was certainly there last year that I studied in Rome. And every celebration is so long. Oh, like Easter Vigil is like 2.5 hours, 3 hours almost. It's insane. And so it means that these YouTube videos that I use for those images are also very, very long. So man, it was such a work to select those images. Anyway, so but it also means that Lent is wrapping up. And do you know, actually, the thing is, I'm ready for Easter, because nature around us is ready for it. I don't know what the weather is in your part of the world, but here it's springtime. Today was a beautiful day, nice temperatures. People are eating ice creams. It's probably also like the downside of the earth warming up. Uh, it's as if springtime gets warmer every year. We have record temperatures here this month. Um, like there people are already barbecuing in their backyard in March. Like I remember 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in March you would have snow. You would have these storms and rain, and it would be very cold and nasty weather. And now, like, wow, it's gorgeous weather, but it's not good for nature. Anyway, so, but did you know that springtime is actually the word for spring in German and in Dutch is Lent. Lente. We call it Lente. That's where the word Lent comes from. Isn't that funny? That the English word is actually derived from our German Dutch origins. And so the name for the season is linked to basically uh, the weather. And of course the whole reason that we celebrate Easter when we celebrate it is that it is a way to give a religious sense to the seasons. And the same can be said of Christmas. For a lot of people, this is actually an argument against Christianity. They say, well, Christians, they just take pagan celebrations. It's all pagan. Christmas is not. It's not about the birth of the Savior. Christmas was around long before it was called Christmas. And I'm thinking, yeah, of course. It was a pagan festival, and it was the incarnation of the light in the pagan emperor. That was the feast around the solstice. And so what the Christians did was, well, let's baptize that celebration. Let's take that date that has a certain meaning that is connected with light, but let's give it depth by connecting it to the birth of Christ, who's the true light of the world. An emperor is not the light with a capital L. It's just a guy. He's going to die, and there's no salvation in that. But if we link Christmas to Christ, then what's already in the vocabulary, in the kind of the experience of the people, will get a whole new depth. So it's basically christening the culture. That's what Christians do, is adding depth, not stealing just stuff for the sake of easy marketing. And in a way, when we celebrate Easter, we also celebrate the season, because this entire season of springtime, it oozes life. It's so symbolic. It's like all the new life that literally kind of explodes from the trees. That is a perfect metaphor for what we celebrate with Easter, which is the new life of Christ. Now, of course, this was linked also to the Jewish Easter, but keep in mind that the language that religions use to express themselves is the language that we need to understand. That's why I don't think it's a problem to use even seasons and seasonal symbolism and give it a religious meaning. I think it only adds to the season in a certain way. So, so Lent in German is Frühling, but I think there's also a German word, because I looked up etymology. Lent. There was also something about German. Here it is. Germanic. Okay, here it is. Lent is from the West Germanic langitanas, means literally long days, or lengthening of the day. Source could also be of Old Saxon Lenten or Middle Dutch Lenten, Old High German Lengezingmanoth. So anyway, the thing is, what this etymology etymology has in common is that it is linked to the season and not to the religious dimension of that time. So there you go. And with that, I think we need to start wrapping this thing up, because I don't want to take more than an hour of your time, and I've already taken 1 hour and 4 minutes. Thank you for listening to this episode. More podcasts are coming soon. Just stay tuned. And if you want to look at our other shows, go to trideo.com, TRIDEO.com. And of course, Trideo is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network, SQPN.com. And thanks to all our supporters, we have people that help us with a one-time gift. We also have monthly donors. We could not do this work without you, and we have some great, great plans. One of the things that I can tell you, which is super exciting, is that we're finally, after all these years, building our studio down the stairs. Follow me on Facebook and on Twitter to see some pictures of that. We're stripping the walls. Today we've been choosing wallpaper. It's going to be very, very cool, and it's going to be the first real studio. I will no longer be producing these shows from my own, like, hobbit hole. It will be in a real studio, and we can have multiple people working there. So we're going to have one room for our meetings, one room for our studio work. It's going to have an audio corner and a video corner. We're going to do lots more live streaming in the future. And we will have one small room for editing. And I cannot wait to come back from Spain, because that's probably when most of the work will be done. But you'll hear much more about that in the upcoming weeks and months. For those of you that wonder what I'm going to do while I'm in Spain, you will be able to walk with me to Santiago, because I hope to be vlogging. I'm not going to do much. I'm certainly not going to check my Facebook all the time, because I'm on a pilgrimage and I need to kind of step away from things. But what I do want to do is share the images with you. So also for that, go to Trideo, follow Trideo on Facebook and Twitter. Links are in the show notes. And if you do that, you'll be able to have hopefully daily updates from Spain, from this adventure, and much, much more. Thank you for listening. I will see you soon. Have a great day, and God bless. And it's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. In case you're wondering what kind of music I was playing, I'll just put it on speakers here so you can. So this is what I'm hearing in my headphones. Of course, I hear it much louder and everything. But so if you want to hear the final mix and the good quality podcast, just go to trideo.com. That's where you'll find the links to subscribe. And now it is 11:30. I need to go to bed really quickly. Tomorrow, the alarm is going to go off before 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll probably spend like half an hour in front of the mirror trying to apply all this paint on my face to hide this. And in case you've been tuning in later and you don't know the story about my black eye, listen to the start of the show. And I explain that telling the story takes like twice as long as the actual event. So thanks for your patience, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.